I didn't feel lost. That's the part that matters. I felt settled. And for a long time, I thought that meant I was doing something right. My life worked. Good apartment, predictable mornings, a job that paid well enough and didn't ask too many questions. People around me used words like stable, grounded, put together. I didn't argue with them. Her name was Emily. We didn't meet through friends. We didn't meet online. She started working in the same building, different company, same elevator. She had a habit of looking directly at people when they spoke, not aggressively, not intensely, just fully. That alone made me uncomfortable. The first real conversation we had was about nothing. The weather, the broken coffee machine downstairs, how the elevator always stopped one floor too many. Ordinary things, but she didn't rush through them. She stayed present. I noticed myself becoming aware of my own pauses, how often I filled silence, how rarely she did. "You don't talk much," I said once. She smiled. "I do," she replied, "just not when I don't need to." We started having lunch together, casually, no expectations. She didn't probe, didn't flirt in obvious ways. She didn't need to. At that point in my life, I wasn't looking for anything. That wasn't a defense. It was a fact. I had already decided what my life was going to look like, and it didn't include disruption. She asked me one day, "Are you happy?" "Now are you?" "Not." "Do you like your job?" "Happy." I answered without thinking, "I think so." That answer surprised both of us. She didn't challenge it. She just nodded, as if she was filing that away for later. We started spending time outside work, walks after long days, coffee that turned into dinner. It never felt rushed. That should have been a warning. Emily didn't demand attention. She didn't compete with my routine. She slipped into the empty spaces, the ones I told myself were intentional. I realized something early on. She wasn't trying to be chosen. She was paying attention. There's a difference. One night, sitting across from me, she said, "You live like someone who already decided how much he's willing to feel." I laughed. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She didn't smile. "I don't know yet," she said. "I'm just noticing it." That sentence stayed with me because it was accurate. I had learned how to manage my emotional exposure. Enough connection to not feel alone. Enough distance to not feel vulnerable. It was a system, and systems don't like disruption. Being with her felt inconvenient, not emotionally overwhelming, just quietly challenging. She asked questions that didn't seek reassurance. She observed. One evening, we stood on opposite sides of the street, saying goodbye. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something to end before it's even started?" I didn't answer. Because the answer was yes, and because I didn't know how to explain that waiting had become my default. We crossed the street separately. No dramatic moment, no lingering glance, but something shifted. That night, lying in bed, I realized something unsettling. I wasn't afraid of falling for her. I was afraid that nothing in my life would remain untouched if I did. I told myself I'd take it slow, that I'd stay rational, that I wouldn't let this become more than it needed to be. Men like me are good at saying that. We mistake control for wisdom. I didn't know it yet, but the life I was already living was about to ask something from me. I became more careful, not with her, with myself. I started measuring things, how long I stayed, how much I shared, how often I let conversations drift into places I couldn't control. Emily didn't notice, or maybe she did, and chose not to respond. She never asked where we were going. That should have made things easier. Instead, it made them heavier. We fell into a rhythm. Dinner once or twice a week, mornings that felt borrowed, not owned, conversations that circled around meaning without landing on it. It worked, until it didn't. One afternoon, she came over unexpectedly. Not intrusive, just present. She sat on my couch, legs tucked under her, flipping through a book she hadn't brought. "You live like someone who doesn't want to leave evidence," she said casually. I looked up. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. Nothing personal here feels permanent. That stung. Because it was true. I had curated my space carefully. Minimal, neutral, non-committal. A place designed to be left without consequence. I laughed it off. She didn't push, but she didn't forget either. As weeks passed, I noticed something shifting. She stopped filling the space I left. If I took longer to respond, she didn't compensate. If I canceled, she adjusted without rescheduling immediately. At first, I told myself that was healthy, balanced. Then I realized something uncomfortable. She was no longer orienting her time around me. That should have been relief. Instead, it felt like erosion. One evening, we walked in silence longer than usual. Not awkward, thoughtful. Then she asked, "Do you feel like your life has room for someone else?" I stopped walking. She didn't. She turned back to face me. "I don't mean time," she clarified. "I mean impact." I searched for an answer that wouldn't require risk. "I don't know," I said. She nodded. "I appreciate the honesty." After that, things softened and sharpened. We became more careful with touch, still close, but less automatic, the kind of closeness that makes you aware of what you're choosing or avoiding. One night, lying beside her, I realized something I hadn't expected. I missed her when she was right there, not because she was distant, because I was. I tried to correct course, invited her into more of my routine, introduced her to parts of my life I usually kept separate. It felt like progress, but it also felt late. She noticed. "You're trying," she said. That wasn't praise. It was observation. "Is it too late?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. "I don't know," she said, "but timing matters more than people think." That sentence followed me for days. I realized then that comfort had become my shield, not against pain, against change. Emily wasn't asking me to dismantle my life. She was asking me to let it evolve, and that was harder. The night everything shifted, there was no argument, just a question. She stood in my doorway, keys in hand. "Do you want me to stay tonight?" she asked, "or are you just used to me being here?" I froze, not because I didn't care, because I knew the answer required a commitment I hadn't rehearsed. She waited, not impatient, just present. I opened my mouth, and for the first time since we met, I realized silence would right away. Not because I was confused, because I understood the weight of the moment. She stood there, keys still in her hand, not waiting to be convinced, waiting to be met. "Stay," I said. The word felt heavier than I expected. Not dramatic, just final. She didn't smile. She didn't relax. She studied my face, not to test me, to see if I meant it. We went to bed that night without filling the silence. No reassurance, no promises, just presence. The next morning felt different, not because anything had changed, because something had been acknowledged. Over the next weeks, I stopped managing my availability. I let things feel uneven, uncertain. I let her see me hesitate. I let her see me unsure. Emily didn't reward that with closeness. She met it with respect. We talked more, not about the future, about fear, about what happens when you build a life so carefully that nothing can touch it. I told her things I hadn't planned to, about the relationship where I disappeared into someone else's expectations, about how I learned to confuse emotional distance with maturity. She listened, not to fix me, to understand me. One evening, she said something that reframed everything. "You don't have to choose me," she said. "You just have to stop choosing comfort over truth." That stayed with me, because it wasn't about her. It was about how I moved through the world. Months passed, not dramatically, quietly. There were still moments when I wanted to retreat, when old reflexes surfaced, but now I noticed them, and noticing changes things. I started leaving evidence. Her mug on the counter, photos I didn't archive, plans I didn't treat as tentative, small acts, big shifts. One night, standing in the kitchen, she said, "You feel different." I looked at her. "How?" "Present," she replied. I realized then that presence isn't confidence, it's consent. Consent to be affected. I didn't become fearless. I became willing. The life I was already living didn't disappear. It expanded, not perfectly, but honestly. I don't know where we'll end up. That uncertainty no longer scares me because I'm not waiting for things to end before they begin. I learned something simple and difficult. You don't lose yourself by letting someone in. You lose yourself by never showing up. Emily met the version of me that was assembled. She stayed for the version that chose to remain unfinished. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't step back.